Let's set a scene. Picture it. You're walking home late one night. There's a path, and on one side, a dark, still river. The only light is from the moon, and it makes the water's surface look like polished black glass. It is dead quiet. You can't hear a thing except for your own footsteps. And then, you hear it. A song. And it's not just any song. The voice is unbelievably beautiful, almost hypnotic. It feels like it's pulling you, drawing you towards the riverbank. So, what do? Do you follow that sound? Or is every alarm bell in your head screaming at you to turn around and get out of there, fast? Your choice. Well, it might be the last one you ever make, because you might be about to meet a Rusalka. Okay, so let's get into this. When most of us hear the name Rusalka, we picture something specific, right? You probably imagine this beautiful, almost otherworldly woman, kind of like a mermaid or a water nymph, sitting by the edge of the water. Her voice is the siren's call that you just can't resist. That's the version we see in paintings and poems. And the popular image is super consistent. She's always this gorgeous young woman with ridiculously long flowing hair. You'll find her haunting freshwater spots, lakes, rivers, and especially creepy old mill ponds. Her number one weapon? That mesmerizing voice, which she uses to lure in young men. And she even has a peak season, a specific time in early summer that Slavic folklore calls Rusalka week. All of this paints a picture of a classic, romantic, maybe slightly dangerous fairy tale. But right here is where we need to stop, because this is where the story you think you know takes a very sharp, very dark turn. This isn't a fairy tale about some magical creature, and she is absolutely 100% not a mermaid. The truth is so much worse. To really understand what a Rusalka is, you have to peel back that first pretty layer of the myth. We're about to leave the world of enchanting sirens and step right into the realm of the unquiet dead. And this is the gut punch. This quote from old Russian folklore gets right to the point. A Rusalka isn't some ethereal, ghostly spirit. She is, and there's no nice way to say this, a reanimated corpse. A physical body that did not get to rest in peace. This brings us to a really important concept in Slavic belief, the založeni pokojniki, which basically means the trapped deceased. This was the term for anyone who died what was considered an unclean death. Think suicides, murder victims, people who drowned, even unbaptized babies. The belief was that the holy earth itself would literally refuse to accept their bodies, trapping their souls in this horrible limbo between our world and the next. They're the ones who cannot rest. So, how does a woman end up as a Rusalka? It almost always starts with a tragedy. The most common story is of a young woman who's been betrayed or abandoned by her lover, and in her despair, she drowns herself. Or maybe she was drowned by someone else against her will. Because her death was violent and unnatural, her soul is trapped. She becomes a Rusalka, forever bound to the water where she died, driven by one single, all-consuming goal: revenge. And her methods are anything but romantic. Yeah, she still lures men in with her beauty and her voice, but what happens next is horrifying. She uses that famous long hair of hers to wrap around them like a net, and then she drags them down into the depths. And here's one of the weirdest and most disturbing twists in any folklore. Some stories say she tickles her victims to death. You can just imagine their last moments being this horrific, panicked laughter as they drown. And she isn't just stuck in the water. During Rusalka week, she can actually climb out and wander the nearby forests and fields, waiting in the trees for her next victim. You know, this idea of a beautiful but deadly water spirit is something you find all over the world. The Nixie from Germanic tales, the Melusine in France. It seems like almost every culture has a story warning you about the dangers lurking just below the surface of the water. I would absolutely love to hear the version from your part of the world, so please drop the story from your hometown in the comments. But the story, it gets even deeper and more complicated. Because the vengeful ghost version of the Rusalka, that's actually the second draft of her story. To find her true origins, we have to travel back even further, to a time before Christianity completely changed the Slavic world. See, before Christianity arrived, ancient Slavic people worshipped nature spirits they called the Bediginis. And these weren't monsters, they were benevolent goddesses of fertility. They were connected to the life-giving moisture that made the crops grow. They were worshipped and celebrated. But after Orthodox Christianity took hold, these old pagan gods were basically demonized. The life-giving nature spirit got merged with the terrifying idea of the unclean dead. And just like that, a goddess of life was transformed into a symbol of sin, suicide, and eternal damnation. There's actually a name for this historical process, dvoeverie, which means dual belief. It was this long period of time where the old pagan traditions and the new Christian rules just coexisted. People didn't just give up their ancient beliefs overnight. Instead, the old and new got all mixed up, creating these incredibly complex, layered, and often contradictory figures, like the Rusalka, part goddess, part demon, part ghost. So why? Why, after all these centuries, are we still so completely captivated and, let's be honest, terrified by her? The Rusalka isn't just some old story. She is having a huge comeback, haunting our movies and books right now. You could say her modern return started back in the 19th century. Writers like the famous Russian poet Pushkin took this terrifying folk monster and turned her into a romantic, tragic heroine. That softer, sadder image stuck around for a while. But now, in the 21st century, she has come roaring back as a full-on horror icon, especially in films like the Russian horror movie The Mermaid, Lake of the Dead, and in tons of dark fantasy. We've gone right back to being afraid of her. So what does she really represent to us today? Well, she taps into so many of our modern anxieties. She is a powerful being created from social transgression, a woman who broke the rules and paid the ultimate price for it. From one angle, you could see her as a cautionary tale, a monster invented to keep women in line. But look at it from another angle. She's a feminist icon, a woman who literally comes back from the grave to get her revenge on the very system that destroyed her. She's a really complex symbol of our fears surrounding female power and independence. So let's put it all together. She is the tragic maiden from the poems. She's the vengeful, walking corpse from the old folktales. She's the demonized pagan goddess. And now she's a feminist symbol of rebellion. The thing is, she isn't just one of these things, she is all of them, all at the same time. Which brings us to the final, haunting question we have to ask. After all of this, who or what is the Rusalka really? Is she just a monster, a demonic force that we should be afraid of, or is she a victim? A tragic figure whose violence is just a desperate, terrifying scream for the justice she never got in life? Maybe the scariest part is that the answer is both. The world is absolutely packed with dark, fascinating folklore, just like this story. So if there's a country whose myths and monsters you want us to open the files on next, you have to let us know in the comments. We're always looking for our next investigation. And finally, if you have a friend who still thinks the Rusalka is just a pretty mermaid with a nice voice, do them a favor. Share this explainer with them. It's time they learned the terrifying truth. Thanks for watching.